Just genuinely, if you can, take a moment and look around at this structure. I don't know the history so much of this particular place, of this particular island. But the wild thing is, I don't know how much you would need to, right? To actually look around here and sense what this is supposed to be. So I'm the executive director of Abolitionist Teaching Network, and we were invited here to think about abolition and the law. And that's interesting to me because we're an organization that is really focused on putting abolition on the map as it concerns education. And so I find myself always asking two questions. One is, why do we need to center abolition in education? And then specifically around this event, what does the law really have to do with education? And then I look around again, and I see this place, and it not only reminds me of prisons, which we must abolish and need to abolish immediately, but schools. If you can recall maybe your school, and you were gonna applaud, thank you so much. You're like, yeah, fuck those schools, yeah. Oh, and sorry, there are children, okay. If you recall maybe your particular school or schools that you walk by, schools that you see, the answer to why education and law and abolition have to be spoken about in one breath might become clearer, right? And then we can think about our specific context today, which is that all of a sudden teachers and educators are being told that they're teaching something the panelists were bringing up, critical race theory. And this is wild because most of them didn't know what critical race theory was, right? I'm a former classroom educator. Most educators aren't familiar with CRT or critical race theory, but all of a sudden, that's what we're teaching. All of a sudden, we find that in about 80% of states in this country, that's about 40 states, book bans are being introduced through the legislature. That school librarians are being told that they have to take off of their shelves certain books because those books, even though they're fiction, center a queer character. That those books tell history. In my state of Georgia, teachers are finding that they might not be able to say the word race in their classroom, that they could tell a story, let's say about Ruby Bridges, right? And they could say Ruby Bridges was the first to go to a school, and she changed history by doing that. But they're wondering, can they say that Ruby Bridges was Black and that she changed the schools by desegregating white schools? They're wondering if they can use that language now. And actually, lawyers in Georgia are saying, we're not sure. The laws are so vague, we're actually not sure. So I say all this to say that I think the right wing has figured something out, something very, very important out, which is that if they lose their grip on education, they lose their grip on the country. And I'm not saying that to say some beautiful liberal, let's all hold hands and education will free us all. I'm an educator, and I don't actually think education is enough to free us all. But I do think that they realize that when an ethnic studies class is introduced into a classroom or a school or a district, that it adds up to more than the sum of its parts. That it's not just a course that could actually teach some version of the truth, that could actually tell a little bit about this country's history and present reality. But that once students, once young people, and once their educators, and once their caregivers and community begin to have a sense of themselves, of how we arrived here, and how we get to where we need to go, that everything gets put into question. That it's not just now the curriculum, but it's the school building and why it looks like a prison, why it even needs to be a particular building, and why it's not something that is just a part of our community, and why it is that our education doesn't educate us, right? In my opinion, education is really 3 basic tenets. It's critical thinking, it's problem solving, and it's creativity. That's it. Critical thinking, problem solving, and creativity. And there's not much in our present day public education system that does that. From standardized testing to the discipline that your body has to endure to be up at 6 a.m., to sit still in a chair all day long, to not do what you want to do, right? So I've painted a really bleak picture, right? Y'all are like, oh my God, can I get out of here? This is terrible. So I do think that the right wing has figured out some important things. They have figured some stuff out, and they're working on kind of controlling the very basis of what makes our society move. But the way that they do that is through fear and through a naturalization of hierarchies. That's like their whole program, y'all. Fear and naturalizing hierarchies. And you can get places with that. I mean, this country is that, right? You can definitely get places with that. But I'll tell you that that falls quite easily. That when you are moved by fear, when you are moved by lies, which is what naturalization of hierarchies socially is, then you aren't moved in a way that actually invites transformation, that actually invites abolition. And I think the way that we win is that we move through consent. And I don't mean some simplistic idea of consent. I mean knowing yourself, knowing your environment, and understanding our interdependence and our interconnectedness. When we move with that form of consent, individually and as a community, we actually are transforming things in the present day. And for us at Abolitionist Teaching Network, that is part of the way we must move. We work right now to fortify organizers and teachers and students who are on the ground doing the work, but we also believe in the radical, visionary necessity to declare what it is that we want, to not just be in response mode to the right wing, but to actually dream boldly, to articulate what it looks like for us to be free. What does it look like to have a school that is just a part of the community? What does it look like to let go of the ageist notion that learning ends at 18 or 22 or 26? What does it actually look like to be in consent and community? So that's a little bit about us. I'm gonna let y'all be. I just wanna say really quick though, that ATN has 3 workshops going on. ATN is Abolitionist Teaching Network. Do any of y'all watch Succession, by the way? Oh my God, I know. Yeah, the Fox News network on that show is called ATN. I was like, shit, we gotta figure that out, but too late. So ATN has 3 workshops going on right now on the lawn in a place called Colonel's Row, but it's right out here to the right. These are 3 workshops put on by people in our community. So 2 of them are grantees. ATN's only been around for less than 3 years actually, but we've given out about $250,000 in micro grants to community members who are doing the work. So 2 of them are grantees, and one of them is someone who holds a lot of healing spaces for us, for educators. They've envisioned these 3 really beautiful workshops, intergenerational workshops for young people, for older folks, for us to really begin to delve into what abolition could look like. So that'll be going on till 3, and I hope you all join it. But thank you so much for your time.